Hello, my sweet little noodles. My name is Brittany, and welcome back to my channel. In this reading vlog, I'm going to be reading Defiant by Brandon Sanderson.
It's Brittany, bitch.
Defiant is the conclusion to the Skyward Flight series. The first book of the series, Skyward, is probably my favorite book of all time at this exact moment. It's one of those books that I just think about very often, and I've loved every single time I've reread it. It gives me the same feels as the first time reading it, and that's pretty rare in a book. Especially because on my channel, I've been exploring reading my old favorites and seeing if they still are favorites, and then reading books and seeing if they are potential favorites, and a lot of times books just aren't up to snuff anymore. Unfortunately, it happens. Like, our tastes change, our thoughts change, our feelings change, and books just aren't the same. But Skyward has always been that book for me. It is that bitch. I just love her so much. So of course, whenever I got Defiant from my library, I had to go ahead and read it. I actually requested Defiant because I realized that my library had not bought it yet, and they let me know that they did buy it, and they said to go back onto the website within 24 to 48 hours and see it there so I could request it for hold. And I didn't read that part of the email, so it was like a good 2 weeks later, and I decided to put on hold for myself, and I think I'm the first person who got the book. It was brand new looking, it smelled brand new, and I think it's because I was the person who requested it first that they ended up giving it to me at that library. Now, I don't know if that's true, but the minute that it was available, I got it. This is just the year of me getting like the brand new books like the minute I request them. So yay me.
Yay me!
If you're by any chance wondering why I don't have the book, it's because I already returned to the library. I'm filming this intro at the end of the video, and that barely ever happens. Life does not always work out the way that you expect it to. Anyway, in this video, I'm gonna split the book up into parts. There's 3 different parts of the book, so I'll be reading part 1, part 2, and then part 3, and giving you my full thoughts on all 3 of the different parts. And I will have a spoiler section specifically, so don't worry about getting spoiled for the book. But I would recommend that you've obviously read the rest of the series. So if you've not read Skyward, Starflight, Cytonic, and the 3 novellas, I definitely would not watch this video. But if you like being spoiled, go ahead. Without further ado, let's get into the reading vlog.
Rudolph, how you do that? Tell me how you do that. Oh, I know how you do that. Rudolph, Rudolph, tell me how you fly so high. Tell me how you fly so high. Rudolph, Rudolph, tell me how you touch the sky. How you touch the sky. They used to make fun of you, call you out your name. Never let poor Rudolph.
First off, if this video quality is not that good, I do apologize, but it is very dark and stormy outside and it's been raining literally all day. But I had to fill you guys in because I'm officially at part 2. So part 1 is only about 80 pages into the novel and pretty much nothing is going on. I will say that I looked ahead to see how many parts there are. There's 3, and I'm a little bit concerned because in part 3, there were a lot of different viewpoints, which we've never had before. So all the different viewpoints are coming from people like Gran or Kimmelin or Jorgen. So I hope this is not a reoccurrence of the ending of the Divergent series. And if you know, you know. Now, nothing has really happened thus far in these 80 pages. There's a little bit of a twist right before we get to part 2, but that's pretty much it. We are just being reintroduced to these characters in this world, and they have basically come together to decide that they are going to try to knock out the superiority by knocking down their mining station. So in the mining stations, that's where they make the acclivity stone that they use for their fighter pilots, and if they can't make more acclivity stone, their army is basically not going to thrive. So that is what they all agree upon in this part, and they decide to go shoot up a mining station. Now, I'm gonna get into a few spoilers for this part, so if you don't want to hear, please wait until the spoiler thing is not on the screen, or go to this time up here. Now, they end up going to a mining station, and they realize that it's actually a thriving city, so everybody's kind of feeling like very guilty about it, and they do have to shoot down civilians, so that's definitely something that they're all struggling with. And on top of it, we lose, I believe, a few people in a slug, and we also lose Ned's arm. So Ned is in the line of fire, and he is okay, but he loses an arm. And so now hopefully in part 2, we're going to see more of how that works and what's going to happen, but he basically can't be a fighter pilot anymore. So I'm really curious to see what they're going to do with his character. And it's definitely a big hit. Like, I kind of felt that one. It was very upsetting. And I was hoping that nobody was like mortally injured. I mean, at least Ned is alive, but he did lose an arm. And there are some really cute parts in here with Hesho. So Hesho is helping Spensa in her fighter pilot. So they like basically set him up with some little controls, and they can kind of like fight together in the same fighter plane. So I really really like that. And then at the very end of part 1, Braid, the human from Starsight who basically like betrayed Spensa and told everybody about her at the superiority. For some reason, she has like a weird connection with Spensa, so they can like project themselves to each other, like astrally project and appear as a hologram. And Braid basically comes to her saying like, hey, let's team up together. And Spensa's like, absolutely not after what you did to me. And Braid's like, well, you have a lot of power and I can see it inside of you. So like, we should team up. And if not, I'm gonna get you. And that's when part 1 ends. So I'm curious to see what they're gonna do with that as well. I was expecting Braid to kind of come back as a character, but it seems that for some reason her and Spensa are connected. Now, I don't know if she's like a long lost relative or something. Like that's kind of what I'm hoping, is like maybe that's why they're connected, but otherwise I'm not really sure why they would be. So once I finish part 2, I'll come back and talk to you guys. But I have to say, unfortunately, I'm not really living for this as of yet. I am having a hard time getting used to the writing, I think. I don't know what it is, but I had the same issue with Cytonic where like I just felt like it was a little bit empty, and I don't really know how else to describe that. But also the scudding font in here is huge. Like it's so big. I think this is honestly like a large print. Like I cannot believe this is not classified as large print, and it probably is, but it's very big for my eyes. I swear to God, Skyward and Starsight did not have this big of a font. I think Cytonic might have as well, and I wonder if they're just trying to like stretch out the book because it's not that big of a book. I think that was also my biggest complaint about why they didn't just put the novellas in with Cytonic in this book. Like I feel like the first 2 novellas could have definitely gone in with Cytonic, and then the last novella, Evershore, should have been combined with Defiant. I said what I said. I feel like these books are trying to like make themselves be longer, and we already have the novellas, so you could just made like some bigger books and we could have only had 4 instead of like 8. How many do you have? Like 7, 8 books all together? It's a lot. It's a lot. I just want to show you guys how big this font is. I feel like it's quite large, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. But I'm gonna go ahead and compare them and then get back to you guys when I finish part 2. I just finished part 2 and it is not a moment too soon because this is due to the library tomorrow. I have this problem lately where I cannot finish books in a timely manner. I literally have like 7 books to finish, and I think there's about a week left in December. So I'm really falling behind on books as well as my own expectations. Now for this, I'm definitely gonna blame my job because it is much too busy to be focusing on reading books, and I can't really read audiobooks when I'm training all day. But I literally just got to part 2 in this like 10 minutes ago, and I'm ready to talk about it. In a non-spoilery way, a lot more has happened. The plot has definitely picked up. We've kind of reunited a lot of the gangs together. We reunited with some people from the 3rd book as well, which I wasn't totally expecting. I like that it definitely dragged both of those stories together because the 3rd novel already felt like such a departure from the rest of the series that it's nice that we got to like revisit a few things from that book. We also get to see Jorgen be very stern with Spensa in this part because Spensa goes off and does something without his permission, and he's not happy about it, and Daddy Jorgen comes out. We're also seeing a lot more of their romantic relationship develop, even though it's still very slow and there's pretty much been no romance up to this point. I feel like this book is definitely the most like romance heavy. They even have like a date that's going on. So I really enjoyed that. I'm enjoying the characters. I'm definitely getting more into this now. It took me probably about a good 100 pages to really feel like I knew what was going on again in this story and just kind of get back into this world because it just felt like such a departure from everything else I have been reading. I haven't read this series in like, God, I don't know, at least a year or 2. So like I just did not feel the vibe of this, but now I'm in the vibe. Also, I ended up reading this at like 4 a.m. the other morning because I had a nightmare, and this was great reading material for 4 to 5 a.m. It was fantastic. I read like 4 chapters. It was really enthralling, and it definitely kept me in the story and helped me to keep my mind off those nightmares. So now I'm gonna go into some slight spoilers. Actually, it's gonna be complete spoilers. Who am I kidding? So in terms of spoilers, Spensa goes out on her own project and helps enlist the help of her friends as well as the help of her favorite pirates from the nowhere. And she basically figures out a way to use the portals and gets Peg from the nowhere and tells her plan. And basically Peg is using her pirates off screen or off page to go ahead and like attack the other portals. And so they're not expecting them to be able to jump out of the portals because the portals are basically locked, but Spensa finds like a way to unlock them. So they have the upper hand here, and Peg and her pirates basically shut down the superiority's mining prospects from within. But of course, this ends up causing a lot of political tension between all the different people and organizations that are now involved in this, because we now have the Kitson and we have the Erdale, and we have their 2 planets at stake, and they're basically fighting with the humans to help overthrow the superiority. So they're not happy that they were not confided in or part of this decision, because Spencer decided to do it on her own, but Jorgen, of course, covers her ass and makes it look like it was a planned spy mission, and he just didn't tell them about it. So now they're not trusting of him and like the coalition, and it's definitely causing some political unrest. Spencer was also visited by Braid once again, actually like 3 times, and Braid ends up challenging her to a duel, and she asks Jorgen, and Jorgen says no. But then at the very end here of part 2, Braid somehow finds a way onto the planet, and she literally like knocks Spencer out from behind, and they're like squeezing Doomslug, and it's causing like her anxiety and pain, and they're able to like get farther into the planet. I'm not 100% sure how that works, because a lot of this is done cytonically. It's done in their mind. I don't understand the whole prospect of it yet, but basically Braid has captured Spencer and left a note looking like Spencer decided to leave on her own for like some other spy mission, which is believable for her. So now they're not going to look for Spencer. They're going to assume she's doing something on her own and just isn't communicating on purpose. But really, she was fucking kidnapped. And that's where we're left off on part 2. So part 3 is the last part of this book, and it is the biggest part. It is like 200 pages. So even though I have gone to 223 pages, there's still like 200 more to go, basically. And I need to finish this by tomorrow. So I'm a little bit concerned that will not be feasible, but I did have the afternoon off from work, and that's why I ended up reading this. So I'm hoping tomorrow I can just finish this, but it's the weekend now, and I don't tend to read a lot on the weekends. I really had to like carve time out for it, but I'm just gonna keep putting that freaking fireplace thing on Netflix and just like keep reading. It's very helpful to getting into the book, but 200 pages is a little more daunting now because it has to be done like basically one day. But anyway, my brother is going to grab dinner right now, and so I'm gonna go ahead and read until he gets back, and then we're gonna have dinner, probably watch like The Grinch or something, and then I'm gonna get back to reading tomorrow. So I finished Defiant a hot minute ago, but I've needed my time to sit with the book and decide how I feel. I actually finished it on Christmas Eve this year, and it was a really lovely way to ring in Christmas. I loved the conclusion to this. I think it's honestly a pretty strong finale. I think Sanderson just does a really good job with endings anyway. I think it's a pretty rare aspect in any author to end a series well, but it definitely was not the full ending I was looking for, and that is because apparently this is going to be like the companion series, I guess, to the Skyward Legacy series. So I mean, our favorite characters, I'm assuming, are hopefully going to live on a little bit because their finale didn't feel as conclusive as I would like, and there's definitely some answers we still didn't get. In general, it ended pretty well, and it was a very successful ending. We get a lot of things wrapped up, and we have some new characters introduced. They're obviously going to be for the further series, so I enjoy that aspect. I do just wish it felt a little bit more like a conclusion. Feels like the door is definitely left open for that future series, but it's a little bit frustrating when you want like a conclusive ending. I would kind of like to shut the door on this series specifically. Even if it lives on another world, I would have liked to have more conclusive evidence of what's going to happen with these specific characters, but I guess it is all up to interpretation. A lot of it was like kind of ambiguous, and we also know what they're going to go on and do in their lives, and that's probably not going to change. So like, I guess it is conclusive for those people, but in the same sense, it's something I'm very divisive about because I love the fact that the series will get to live on a little bit. I'm very conflicted about how I feel about it. I'm going to give it 4 stars overall. I think it's a really strong conclusion, but I don't really know how I feel about it leaving the door open. That's really what I'm struggling with. Like, do I like the fact that it opened up the door for Skyward Legacy? Yes. Do I also not like that fact? Yes. Sometimes I would just like to wrap up a story, but in the same sense, I also respect that I'm going to get to like read more of it because I do love this world. I just find it fascinating. And so I love the fact that it's going to get a separate series so we can go ahead and like explore other parts of this universe, but it also makes me upset that like we didn't get like as conclusive as an ending as I was hoping. So that's where I'm really divided. And since Cytonic was such a letdown for me, I was really hoping this would be like a lot better. And it definitely is. This is definitely a very strong 4-star. I barely gave Cytonic 3 stars to just be polite, but this was definitely a lot better. It gave me a lot more of those feels, but I still feel a little bit detached from this. I don't know if it's just because Cytonic already went off but I still felt a slight detachment to this last book. If you're looking for an emotionally satisfying and bittersweet ending, this still definitely gives you that, so I wouldn't worry about that too much, and you probably don't have to even read the Skyward Legacy to understand exactly what's going to happen with these characters. Like, it's well plotted to like what their lives are going to look like if you never read the other series, and I don't even know if the characters from this book are even going to be in that series. I have no idea. I know that Jancy Patterson is writing it, but I'm not sure if it's just her writing it or if her and Sanderson are writing in tandem. Again, I have no freaking clue. But regardless of my feelings, let me get into some spoilers for part 3. So at the end of part 2, we're left with Spencer being kidnapped by Braid and the Superiority. That definitely continues on in part 3, where she's basically tortured and they inject her with a serum that makes her like not cytonic anymore, so she can't reach out cytonically until the serum starts wearing off. And as it turns out, Braid is the villain. Like Brillin. I guess Braid is the Brillin. She's the bad bitch of this, and I didn't really see her becoming the villain. I actually didn't see that, but she's basically the one behind the entire Superiority. She's running it behind the scenes. She's the one who's in charge. So Winzik is just like her little puppet, and she actually ends up killing Winzik herself, and then Spencer like finishes the job because she left Winzik like suffering. I wasn't expecting that. That was definitely a shocking moment where like she's basically playing with Spencer, making Spencer think she can escape, and then she keeps like timing Spencer to see how long it takes her to escape. It's kind of interesting, and I really like that part because you always think that she can get away, but she can't. But the problem is Braid is like definitely not like my favorite villain because she's a little one-sided, but I can also appreciate her ruthlessness. And I think that's a really good point that Sanderson makes in this book is like, is Braid just acting like a monster because she's been raised to act like a monster? Because like everybody in the Superiority thought that humans were dangerous, so she's acting like the monster they think the humans are. And Spencer knows better, obviously, because she lives with the humans. She grew up with them. Braid was taken from her parents at a very young age, and so she has been growing up in a society that thinks she's a dangerous monster. So this is the perfect example of like nature versus nurture. You know what I mean? Like if you treat someone like a monster, are they going to become a monster? It's a fascinating concept. I feel like it's going to go over a lot of people's heads, but it's something I really enjoyed about Braid as a character, but she is also a little bit one-sided, and I'm a little bit confused as to why she's asking Spencer these like specific questions, like trying to get information out of Spencer, like what it really means to be human, and then she'll like take Spencer down. So I just don't know if she's just trying to get information out of Spencer or what, but it felt like she was like bordering on understanding what humanity is about, and then she just like throws it in your face. It's a little confusing, and it's probably gonna get answered in Skyward Legacy. So at the end, Spencer kind of has like a shootout with Braid, and Spencer shoots into an empty cockpit, so we're assuming that Braid escaped. He's not there. So she like all of a sudden hyper jumped out of her own ship, and we have no idea where she is, so I'm sure that's gonna get answered in the Skyward Legacy series. And we're having this big battle, and Gran basically sacrifices herself because they remake the Defiant ship, and Gran goes down with the ship. She decides to have them pull all their like forces behind lines and then ask the little Tanix if they can help them like hyper jump into wherever it is. And so Gran goes down with the ship. They attack the ship and she explodes, and we know that Gran is gone. Spencer can no longer feel her cytonically. We know she's passed. And the Tanix were definitely a big part of this as well. So the Tanix are the only reason this even happened because they're like hyper jumping people in and out. And our coalition with like the Urdale and the humans and the Kitson, they actually decided to make the Tanix like their own people. So now they have like legal rights as citizens. So that's also what they're kind of like using as like a tactic to get in there, saying like, hey, the Tanix are recognized as like a species within our coalition. You're holding them hostage, like you have to release them because they're being used to like communicate and hyper jump and all these other things by the Superiority using fear. In the end, Spencer cytonically like talks to the Delvers, and she basically shows them love because the Tanix can show her love cytonically and what it feels like. And so she basically like tells the Tanix to show the Delvers love. And then when Braid like says to go after the Tanix, it was a really sweet scene where the Delvers are like, you're hurting the little Delvers, because the Delvers can't ever identify that they're not a Delver themselves. They think they're like always extensions of themselves, just like how the Tanix look at humans as like a different version of Tanix, like a big slug. It was kind of the same thing, but Mbot kind of put that in their periphery as well, because Mbot is present in this book. I don't know if I already mentioned that. I don't think I did, but Mbot comes back. Mbot also rebuilds his own ship. This book ending was really good. Like, that's all I'm gonna say. But the book ending, in my opinion, was pretty good. At the end, the whole day is saved and Jorgen is still in control, and Spensa is basically gonna go out on these little missions trying to, like, I don't know, like colonize other planets, but like work with the other planets to have them join like their coalition instead of like the superiority now, because the superiority is basically like extinct. I don't really know the whole jam, but we're basically gonna use like the Tanix to like hyper jump in and out of places, and FM seems to be on the front line of that mission as well. Anyway, I feel like I explained the ending quite poorly. If you would like to see it better explained, please check out some of the videos below. I also have the videos of the other books explained, so that way, like, if you want to go into this book not having reread all of the entire other books in the series, you can get a refresher, which is basically what I did, because I think I read Evershore last year, and that's the last book I read for the entire series, so I wanted a refresher, and so I went ahead and looked up some people on YouTube just to kind of get that refresher, so that way I knew exactly what was going on, even though I had a pretty good memory of it. So I would recommend you go check out those videos instead, because this was just my experience. I'm not always very good at explaining how I feel about things, and also I forgot to take notes about part 3, and now I don't have the book anymore because I already returned to the library. So that's my bad, but I had to return to the library, and I already returned it late by quite a few days, but I used Christmas as an excuse because they were closed anyway, and I got to finish it. So do I feel bad? No, but I still hate like not being able to return things on time. Anyway, this video has gone on much too long. I'm so sorry for my blabbering, but thank you guys so much for being here. If there's any other books you guys like me read, let me know. If there's anything like this series, also let me know, because I'm definitely a little bit of like a hangover from this. I really want something else that's going to give me those feels, and I'm really open to exploring other series that might make me feel this way, so please drop those suggestions down below. Anyway, see you guys next year.